All right, good morning, everyone. So, continuing with chapter 7.2, we are looking at the common spreadsheet features. So, all of these features that we looked at in 7.1 and we're continuing in 7.2, they're very important for you to remember. Basically, what are the different parts of a spreadsheet and what makes up a spreadsheet, what are the different aspects of it, and so on. Now, um, as I mentioned already, before we start, we're going to have a quick revision of what we looked at so far. So, just some quick questions, and then we're going to get started. So, the first question is um, what is the difference between a worksheet and a workbook? What's the difference? Anyone?
Sir, the worksheet is just a single sheet by itself, but the workbook is like an accumulation of numerous sheets.
Very good, very good. So hopefully the rest of you were thinking that. If you weren't, please note it in your book. The worksheet is like a single sheet that has the rows and columns, whereas the workbook is a collection of those sheets. Good. Um, what is the chart sheet?
It's basically a sheet with a chart on it.
Good, very good. Does it have rows and columns?
No, sir.
No. Good, very good. A chart sheet does not have any rows and columns. It is only for a chart. Good. What else? In the spreadsheet, how do we know where we are working from?
The cell will be highlighted with a
Cells.
dark border.
Good. And what do we call that cell?
An active cell.
Active cell.
Very good. An active cell. So an active cell is how we know where we are working from in spreadsheet. Good. So what is the active cell equivalent to? Say for example in Microsoft Word. What is it equivalent to? Or what can we compare it to? Jada? Jasmine? We have two Jasmine. Anyone in the Jasmine? Active cell can be compared to a, it starts with the letter C. CU.
Sir, can I need an answer?
Cursor.
I heard somebody said it. Somebody, what?
A cursor.
The cursor. So CURSOR. Hopefully that's how cursor is spelled. So in Microsoft Word, you have a cursor that basically tells you where you are working from. So in spreadsheet, your active cell is acting like that cursor. Wherever you have that active cell, that is basically where you are working from. So your active cell can be compared to a cursor. Good. What is cell reference? What is cell reference?
The combination of column, letters, and rows.
Good. Combination of a column letter and a row number. Good. And what do we also call that? There's another name, cell reference. Cell Cheyenne, Robert, cell something. What does column letter and row number also mean? The what for the cell?
The name of the cell.
The name of the cell. So that's going to be cell name. So the cell reference is also the cell's name. So the column letter, so for example A1, that is the cell reference or the name of the cell. There are two types of data. What are the two types of data?
Sir, labels and values.
Labels and values.
Labels and values, good. What type of data is labels?
Non-numeric data.
Non-numeric, good. Values are going to be
Numeric data which can be calculated.
very good. I like that ending. Numeric data which can be, excuse me. Yes, numeric data which can be calculated. So, and labels are going to be non-numeric data. So, when is a value not a value? When do we treat a value as not a value? The answer is actually right there.
Sir, when we create, we started with an apostrophe.
You start with apostrophe. No, that's something else.
Star when it's non-numeric.
No,
Sir, when it's not being calculated.
when it's not being calculated as a key point. So the key point to remember about values is that the main purpose of values is to do calculations with them. So anything that you do not normally do calculations with, even though it's a number. What were some examples we looked at?
Your phone number, identification number.
Good, good. So those numbers, even though they're numbers, they're values, they're numeric data, we don't usually do calculations with them. So we treat them as labels. Now what Grace said about putting the apostrophe, that was the method of turning them into a label. Using the apostrophe, formatting it as a label. So very good. What else? What else? So by default, labels are what aligned?
Left aligned.
Left aligned, good. They are left. So values are going to be what aligned?
Right aligned.
Right aligned, very good. So labels are left and values are right. Good. Let's see. What is the name of the feature that groups a bunch of cells together and puts the information in the middle?
Merge and center.
Merge and center. Very good. Merge and center. It groups a bunch of cells together and puts the information in the center or the middle. Good. Um, what is a block range? What is a block range? Amina?
Sir,
Go ahead.
a block range is a group of pages that are physically adjacent in the table.
Okay, good try. Anyone else? Jonathan? Morano? What is a block range? Or what is a range? Alright, so we can come back to that later because I think we're going to be looking at that today. Yeah, we're going to be looking at it today. So, but in case you guys want to take note of it, a block range is a group of cells. A block range is a group of cells. What else? So when it comes to the cut, copy, and paste, how many times can you store information in a clipboard?
Sir, 24 times.
24 times, very good. So 24 times, 24 entries you can make into your clipboard. Good. Now, when you see a cell with a bunch of hashtags inside of it, what does that mean?
Sir,
The cell is too small to hold the data.
Very good. The cell is too small to hold the data. So what do we simply have to do?
Sir, enlarge the cell. Resize the cell.
Good, very good. Basically making it wider so that we can see the information. Good. A very important term to remember. What is autofit?
Sir, Autofill automatically resizes the cell to display all characters.
Good. It automatically resizes the cell to fit the characters. But there's a piece that is very important to remember. It automatically fits to what?
Sir, the largest info.
Right, the largest piece of information. So remember, it fits to the width. So for example, if this is the width here, if I double click here, it fits to this width here. But if I add more characters, here and it auto fits, it's going to enlarge to that, even though I have a small width of characters at the top there. So it's always going to go for the largest piece because the purpose is to display all of the information. Good. You guys did relatively well in your revision. If there was something you didn't remember, please look over it. These are some of the main features that you should be remembering, especially for exam purposes and so on, CSEC exam purposes. So let's continue where we left off in chapter 7.2. So what we're going to look at today is formulae and functions. We're going to look at what's the purpose of them. We're going to look at what is autofill. We're going to look at what is cell ranges. And then we're going to finish off with what is title locking. Hopefully we reach that far. So the first two paragraphs, I think we are at, give me a second. We are at Emmanuel, so that's going to be Henry. Can you read for us? You can start the reading.
Okay, sir. When a formula is created, the result is displayed in the cell and the formula is displayed in the formula box. If a number used in a formula changes, Excel will automatically recalculate the formula and a new result will be displayed. To start a formula, enter an equal sign. Then enter the address of the cell to be used in the calculation. The arithmetic operators. Specify the arithmetic operation to be used in the calculation.
Good. So you guys should have seen me create some simple formulas so far. So the basic structure of a formula is to start with an equal sign. So you must start a formula with an equal sign. So I'm going to put two values here, 4 and 4, and I'm going to create a formula. So I'm going to start this formula with the equal sign. Now I'm going to put in the cells that I want to calculate. So this is going to be A1, the operator, which is plus, and the next cell, A2. And I'm going to press enter to complete that formula. So based on what we have here in the paragraph, the result of the formula is shown in the cell, and the formula can be seen in the formula bar. What they mean here is that even though we can see the formula here is inside of the cell, what they're basically saying is that when you're looking at it from this view here, you're not editing the formula, you're just looking at the cell. So if you just look at the cell, you are going to see the result of that formula in the cell. So all we're seeing is 8 currently, and that is the result of that formula. If you look above, you're going to see the formula bar. So this white bar that stretches all the way across, you're going to see the formula. So that way you don't have to go into the cell, double clicking on it to see the formula. You can see the result and the formula at the same time. So the cell shows the result once you have completed that formula, and the formula bar is going to show the formula equal A1 plus A2. So what is the benefit of using formulas? Well, the benefit, one of the major benefits, is automatic recalculation. That is one of the major benefits of formulas. So, for example, we could have created a formula just like how you guys would do it in maths. We could say 4 plus 4, and that's going to give us a result. So we didn't need to type the cell names. 4 plus 4 is going to give us 8. It's the correct answer. But what if for some reason I wanted to change this 4 at the top here? I change it to 7. The formula does not change because of how I created it. This method of creating the formula is an ineffective method because it does not use the cells as reference. This goes back to the when we were revising, we looked at cell reference, the cell's name. Using those are the most effective way of creating a formula. So by using A1, which references what is inside of A1, put in your operator, and the next cell, we have our calculation. So whenever the values change inside of a cell, it is going to automatically recalculate that formula. No matter how many times it changes, it's going to automatically recalculate all the time. So this is very useful when you have, say for example, you created a spreadsheet to calculate an invoice, or you're calculating a lot of items. So you can add more items, you can add more prices, and it will always automatically recalculate the values for you. So that's one of the main benefits of using formulas. Now, as mentioned, you always have to start with that equal sign. If you do not start with that equal sign, I'm going to delete it. It's just a bunch of characters now. So you can type in even more operators, that minus A1 or even 6, nothing's going to happen. Or even if I type in here 8 minus 5, nothing is going to happen. It turned it into a date. Why? Because it does not have that equal sign to make it a formula. But even though I type equal sign here, this doesn't have any cells or operators and so on. Actually, yeah, because it's customized as date. But ignore that. So unless I put the equal sign here, only then will it turn into a formula. So the most effective formula is going to use cell addresses to carry out its calculations. And in this table here, we have a list of the arithmetic operators that you can make use of in your formula. We have the plus sign for addition, the hyphen for subtraction, the asterisk for multiplication, the forward slash for division, and the percentage sign for percentage. So very important to remember those operators because you will be using them to create your formulas. So their use is just like how you would use them in maths to create formulas there also. So let's continue. The next two paragraphs. Grace, can you read for us?
A formula can be keyed directly into a cell, or you can use the mouse to point to the cells you want to include. Formulae can also be copied by using the copy and paste buttons. A function is defined as a built-in mathematical formula included in Excel. Functions are used for common calculations in business and personal use. 4 common functions are sum, automatically totals a column or row; average adds the values in the range and divides by the number of cells in the range; max used to determine the largest value in a range; min used to determine the smallest value in a range.
Good. So we're still on formula. When you are entering your cell addresses into your formula, you have two methods. You would have seen me doing so. You can either type in the name of the cell. So you can type A1 plus A2, Or a much easier method is to click on the cell. So you can move your cursor, click on the cell, so whatever cell you click on, that is what will appear in the formula. So you click on it, you put your operator, and you click on the rest of cells. So it's basically whichever one is convenient for you, easier for you, you make use of that method. Now, when we were looking at the cut, copy, and paste section, we said that whatever's inside of a cell, we can copy that information. So it's the same for formulas also. Formulas can be copied. So if I right click here, I click copy, I can paste this formula in another location and it will paste the formula. Now notice the formula change. It went from A1, A2 to D1, D2. There's actually a reason for that, a reason why we would want it to change. And later on, when we're looking at addressing, we're going to cover why it changed. But the main point to remember is that we can copy formulas. Now, when it comes to formulas, you would have noticed that you have to create the formula. So if you had to add a series of numbers, for example, if there was a bunch of 4s here, and we had to add all of those 4s together, then we'd have to create a formula looking like that plus that plus that plus that and plus that. And we have our answer there. But those kind of formulas, they take up time because it's a lot of entry you are making, and it's going to end up with a very large formula, for example, if there was more cells. So basically, here comes functions to the rescue with this issue that we're going to have here. So a function is a built-in mathematical formula. So it's important for you to remember the difference between a function and a formula. A formula is a basic calculation that you are going to create. 2 plus 2, A1 plus A1, a basic equation. But a function is a formula that was built into the spreadsheet program. So what we mean by that is when it comes to certain calculations, there's always a pattern that we would follow. For example, when we are calculating average, how do we calculate average? Simple maths. It's a maths question. How do you
So you add,
go ahead?
so you add and then you divide
Good.
by the amount.
Right. So you add up all the values and you divide by the amount of numbers that you're adding up. So it doesn't matter how much numbers they are. It doesn't matter how large the total is. It's always going to be the same method to calculate the average. Yes. Yes, Naishal. So it's always going to be the same method to calculate your average. Now, with that in mind, there are other calculations that have similar patterns. For example, this addition here. It's always going to be adding one number after each other. So what the developers did is that they basically created formulas, default formulas, for those calculations, and that is basically a function. Once a calculation has a pattern, it can be used as a function. So for example, we have 4 common functions here. We have the sum function, which can be used to add numbers together or add cells together. So let's see how a function works. So this is our formula here. So we're going to put formula, and this is going to be our function. So let's see the difference. So I'm going to turn on this view here so that you can see the as I type. So it's still going to start with the equal sign because it's going to do some calculation. It's still basically a kind of a formula. So we must start with equal sign. But note the difference is that we're going to type next the name of the function. So in this case here, the name of our function is sum. So we type in that name, and if you notice, some other names are also here. So whatever character you type, it's actually going to give you a list of functions that start with that character. So if I type DA, I'm going to get a bunch of functions that start with DA. So we're going to use SUM. Now, whenever you type a function, you're going to always start, after the name of the function, you're going to always put a open bracket. And if you notice, when I put that open bracket, some different information showed up at the bottom here. What this is doing, it is basically telling you the structure of that function, or the structure of this built-in calculation. So remember I said that a function is a built-in formula. So basically you have to know now, how are we to put in the values for this calculation. Some are simple, like for example this sum function. You basically type in the values 12, 33, 45, and you close the cell, and we get our results. Sum 12, 13, 45, and we have our results there. So this has a simple pattern here of putting in the values and separating it by commas. Now in this case here, if you wanted to add all of these 4s, we could have simply highlighted all of them and press enter. And if I change back the view, notice I have the same answer here. So this one here, I have a formula. This here is a formula. And if there was more cells, it would have gotten more lengthy. But notice how short this function is. So even if there were more cells, it would have remained inside of this bracket here. So the function, they're a built-in calculation, they're a built-in mathematical formula that carries out a calculation. And for each function, you basically have to know what is the structure of creating that function. For example, in this case here, it's the word sum, the name of the function, and in brackets, you put the cells that you want to copy. So if we look at the other function now, average, so I'm going to put average here, and I'm going to start with the equal sign. Can anybody guess what's going to come next? What do you guys think is going to come next? No one?
Sir, average?
Yes, the word average. Very good. So the reason why I asked that is because if we look at the names of these functions here, so we have a name of sum, we have a name of average, we have a name of max, we have a name of min. Now for example, min is the shortened abbreviation of minimum. So it's technically not really a word. But this is the name of the function. Now, what happened to some persons, not saying you guys, but some persons, they get tricked into thinking that average, it's you simply type AVG or AVE, something that is short also. So what I'm trying to get over is that when it comes to the name of the function, you have to type the exact name. You have to know what is the exact name of that function. So in the case of average, it is going to be the complete name average. But in other cases, like for example, maximum, minimum, it's going to be the shortened version of that word. That is the exact name. So in this case here, equal average, that is the name of the function, and then we open our brackets. So notice it has a similar pattern to the sum function. The structure is similar. You type equal, you have open brackets, and you put the numbers inside. So 5, 4, 6, and then we close, and we have our calculation there. So if we wanted our cells at the top here, we could highlight it, and we have our calculation here. Now the next function, we have max. So equal, and we type max. Now a trick, not really a trick, but an easy way of getting your open bracket is to double click on the name of the function. So for example, if I double click on max here, that is in blue, it is going to open my brackets for me. So I don't need to type that bracket, and I can simply go and highlight the cells that I want. It's going to appear there, and I actually don't need to close the bracket also. If I press enter, it's going to automatically close it for me. But it's just to remember that this is the structure of your function. The system can automatically detect that you need to open with a bracket, and it will automatically close for you. Yes, but you have to remember the structure. The structure is to type the equal sign, put the name of the function, and then put brackets. So inside of the brackets now are going to have some rules based on the function. For example, these ones are simple. It's telling you to just put numbers inside of it. Number 1, number 2, and so on. But more complicated ones, for example, this one here. Notice this one has some more structure. It's asking for a logic test of if, value if true, value if false. So this can help you to remember what is the structure of the function if you're ever using it, if you ever forget. And it's important for you to remember it. Remember the structure. So min, that's also simple too. Equal min, open brackets. It's just putting the numbers inside of it. So if we highlight the cells once again, enter, we have our min function there, and it calculates the minimum there. Now we just have a bunch of 4s, so let me change up the values so we can see differences in our calculation. Good. So the formula, this is a formula, equal, and all the cells with the operators. So the total there is 15. This is a function, equal sum, and inside the brackets we have the same cells. It's doing the same purpose. We have average here, so the average of these 3 numbers, these 5 numbers, is 3. So notice we didn't need to tell it to add the numbers together. We didn't need to tell it to divide by the certain amount of numbers. That was built into the function. It knows what it needs to do. Once you highlight or tell it what cells to use. Max is going to look at all of those cells and determine which is the maximum value, and min is going to look at all of these cells and determine which is the minimum value. So if I change 5 to 60, notice max changed to 60. If I changed 3 to 0, notice 0 appeared in the minimum here. So they're looking at all the values and doing their calculations. So that there is the difference between a function and a formula. A formula is an equation that you are going to create, and a function is a built-in equation. It's a built-in formula that the system already knows how to carry out its calculations. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Anyone that has any question, needs any clarification? There's an entire chapter that has more functions. So these are just the basic functions. The idea right now is to just get an understanding of the structure of the function, equal the name of the function, and we use brackets. So that's the most important part to note right now. So, okay, so hopefully some of you are wondering this. Does the way you type the name of the function matters? Does it matter if I type it in lowercase? Does it matter if I type it in uppercase? No. The answer is no, it does not matter. So if I type it in lowercase and I press enter, you notice it automatically converted into uppercase. Even if I just typed one word in lowercase, enter, it's still going to work. So it's not case sensitive, but it's still going to always end up with all caps. It doesn't really matter how you type it. That's not important. What is important is for you to remember what is the exact name of that function. That's the most important part to remember. Alright, so if no questions on formulae and functions, I guess we can move off from that. And we're going to look at autofill now. What is autofill and why is it useful? So we're going to have Jada, can you read for us?
Autofill. When you enter a formula that you need to copy to other cells, then the autofill feature will help you. The autofill command instructs Excel to copy cells including formulae functions from one selected cell, row or column to adjacent cells. You may also use autofill with text and numbers without formulae, such as months or actual numbers. Excel's autofill will fill a block of cells with either numbers or text depending on what is located in the first cell. Here are the steps. Click on the cell with the data, move the mouse to the bottom right corner of the cell. The pointer should change to a twin crosshair. Click and drag the mouse to fill the other cells. When working with numbers, however, you must enter 2 cells of data so that Excel knows by how much the number should be increased each time.
Good. So, what is the purpose of autofill? Well, it's basically another method of copying formulas. So, for example, if I wanted to copy this formula here, so I'm going to right click on it, go to copy, and I'm going to paste it wherever I want. But every time I want to paste it, I have to do that right click and paste or control and V every time. So autofill, it's an easier method of copying a formula so that you don't really have to do that, but it only copies to adjacent cells. So for example, if I wanted to copy this formula here, I can drag it out like this here, and I copied it across to these cells here. Now, what is the instructions to do your autofill? Well, as you just saw, when it comes to formulas, let me go to, let's see, I'm going to put one there. So in each cell that you make active, you're going to notice at the bottom right, there's a very small square. Are you guys seeing it? A very small square. Anyone seeing it? Or too small?
Yes, sir.
So any cell that you make active, even if you highlight a bunch of cells, if you look to the very bottom right, you're going to notice a very small square. That is the autofill button you can see. So if we click on this cell here with the 1 inside of it, and we move our cursor to that small square, you notice it changed. So all the time the cursor was a white plus looking like a cursor, but when you hover over it, the autofill button, it gives you this thin crosshair looking cursor. So that is how you know you are basically on that option there. Because some persons, they click inside the cell and they do this, but this is just highlighting cells. This is not autofilling cells. So you have to go to this very corner here. Your cursor is going to turn to that thin crosshair. You click on it and you drag. So notice it's highlighting the other cells also that you want to copy to. And when you release, it would have copied those, copy the information from the first cell to the rest of the cells. So that is how autofill works. Now, say for example, you want to copy a certain word. For example, the word test. You want a few of those words coming down. So you can do the same thing. You can autofill, and the word test is going to be copied downwards. So you don't have to do Control and C and Control and V all of the time. It's a much easier method of duplicating that that word, that cell. Now, when you autofill, you're going to always notice autofill options at the bottom. So when you click on this box here, it's going to give you some options. So when you're autofilling numbers, the default option is to copy the cell. So whatever's in the first cell, it copies to the rest of the cell. Now numbers, we know it increments. So if you want to increment, you would use the second option, fill series. So say for instance you're creating a table and you want to number the table, you can easily autofill up to where you need the numbers and use the fill series autofill option, and you just got a quick 1 to 13 without typing in all of those numbers. So that is one method there of using the autofill option, that fill series, so that you can automatically increment the numbers. Now, when it comes to words, as I just showed you, you can also autofill words. So it's going to copy test all the way down. Now, there are some words that actually can increment because they have a pattern to them. Do you guys know of any of words that have a pattern to them, that basically change?
Days of the week?
Days of the week. Very good. So days of the week, anytime you hear a certain day, you always know a day is after that. So if you hear Monday, Tuesday is always going to be after. If you hear Sunday, Monday is going to always be after. So the system recognizes that also. So if we type in the word Sunday and we autofill, notice it's actually going to change the days. It knows that Sunday, Monday is after Sunday, then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so on. So it automatically filled in those days. Now let me autofill again, and let me look at the fill options. So notice by default for these kind of words, the default is fill series. So that's why it incremented, that's why it changed. Now say for example, you just wanted to copy the word Sunday. In that case, you're going to use the first option, copy cells, so that you get only the word Sundays. So that's why it's important for you to know what is the difference between these first two options. The copy option just copies what is in the first cell, and the fill series, if it recognizes that it can change, it can increment, it is going to make that change. We also have months in the year. So if we type January and we autofill that also, notice we have the months here now. So if we wanted to just copy January, we would have used the first option. But if we want to fill in the rest of months, we would use the fill series option. Now there are two other options. There is the fill format and the fill without format. So basically if there is formatting at the top here, like for example, I made this yellow and I made it red. This is formatting. Turning it yellow, turning it red, that is called formatting. So if I bring it down, notice the format was also copied. So if I say fill without format, let me delete this information here. So notice it's empty. And if I bring it down now, notice it filled, it copied the information, it filled the series, but it copied the formatting also. So if I don't want the formatting, I can fill without format. And now I have the fill, but I don't have the formatting. Now you can also do the reverse. You can fill, but you're only adding the format. So remember the cells were empty before. Let me undo. The cells are empty. Notice the cells are empty. So when I fill, it's going to fill in the information. But if I use the option fill format only, it's only going to copy the format. The fill without format is going to fill, but the format is going to be left out. It's going to be without format. So if we use the third option, format only the format is going to be copied here. So notice only the format, only the yellow, and if you type, you're going to get red characters in the boxes here, in the cells here. So that is the autofill option. It is used to copy information from one cell to another. It is used for copying functions and formulas. So even if you have a function or you have a formula, say for example, let me go over here. Say for example, equal A1 plus A2. If we autofill that and we turn this on, notice it copied it. It copied the formulas also. But once again, they changed, and later on we're going to look at why they would have changed. So autofill, it can be used to copy functions, formulas, text, numbers, and so on. But remember, It is only for the adjacent cells, cells that are right next to each other. And we looked at the different options there. Now, the last thing is that when you are autofilling, if you notice that, for example, numbers, these numbers here, they incremented by 1 all the time, or basically it was counting. So it was going 1, 2, 3, incrementing by 1. Now, if you wanted to increment by a certain number, you need to tell the system what is the difference. For example, you need to give it two numbers. So in this case, I'm going to give it 1 and 5. 1 and 5 has a difference of 4. So what's going to happen now, if I fill this series, it's going to increment by 4. So what I need to do is highlight the two numbers, basically telling it that these are the two numbers, and then autofill. And it's going to increment by every 4. So 5 plus 4 is 9, 9 plus 4 is 13, and so on. So say for instance, I want to increment by tens. So 10 minus 0, that is a difference of 10. Highlight the two numbers, autofill, and notice my numbers have a difference of 10. They incremented by 10. If I want a difference of 20, 0 and 20, autofill once again, and I have a difference of 20 here. Now, if we look at the options, we're on fill series. So if we just wanted to copy that 0 and 20, we could have done that also. Say for instance, we wanted to copy, say 1, 5, 10, 15. We want to copy that string of numbers downward. We could highlight all 4 of those numbers, bring it down. It's going to autofill by default, but it's going to fill series by default. But if we copy cells, notice those 4 same numbers are going to get copied downwards. So those are the uses for autofill. It's basically a use case scenario. If you have that scenario, you're going to make use of it in that way. But that is basically how it functions. Any questions on autofill?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Alright, so in review, we basically looked at only 2 topics today. We looked at functions and formulas. So what are the rules for a formula and a function? It should always start with an equal sign. Always start with equal sign. And you can use numbers, 1, 2, 3, and so on. But the most effective formula is going to use cell addresses. Remember that? And important to remember the difference between a function and a formula. A formula is an equation that you would type in, that you are going to create, but a function is a formula that was already built into the system. And we have a few common ones here: sum, average, max, and min. When it comes to functions, it's important for you to remember the name and the structure as to how to design the function. And then lastly, we ended with autofill. Autofill is used to copy cells. So it can copy functions, formulas, text, numbers, whatever's inside of a cell. It copies it to adjacent cell. That's important to remember. Alright, that is all we're going to look at for today. If you guys don't have any questions, that's all. Enjoy the rest of the video.
You too, sir.